sharing strategic insights on navigating the rigorous peer review process and elevating your research to global standards. Whether you are an early career researcher or a seasoned scholar looking to boost your publication impact, this session promises practical, actionable wisdom from a true master of the craft. Please join me in extending a warm, enthusiastic welcome to Professor Satyaraj Venkateshan. Sorry for the inconvenience. Is gone.
To give you a kind of a prep on how to publish and so on. I know that this is one of the most challenging things that each one of you as a young or senior academician face. So this is just a story or a narration about how to publish, what are the strategies to use. So if you want to make this conversation more meaningful, it would be great if you have any questions, especially after 2:15, I'll stop my presentation. I'll take up questions, okay? So I'm going to concentrate on a couple of major things. One is what I call as, you better make notes. I don't allow photography, okay? So if you have the plans to photograph the slides, I'm not allowing that, okay? So please make notes and take your time. So the first thing that I want to concentrate is what is called publication cycle. And the second one, because you know that you were asked to raise questions through Google form, and most of you have done so. And one of the interesting questions is about AI, the use of AI. There are a lot of questions about should I use AI, how do I document, that's enough. So how do I document AI and so on. So I'll also talk a bit about AI, okay? So without much ado, let me just go to the main aspects. So this is the first part that I want to concentrate on. How many of you have published articles? Just raise your hand. Any public? Okay. How many of you have published in Scopus journals? You have done it. And which journal is that?
So this is a human arena, Springer Nature.
Okay, Springer Nature. How about others? You haven't published, you don't have much of an exposure. So this becomes very meaningful if you haven't done your, publication. So this is what we call as publication cycle. And one of the questions that, I don't know who asked, but then the question was, how long will it take for a Scopus or Web of Science publication? So I've put the answer here. Typically, it takes 1 to 1.5 years. All right? Maybe you should inform this to your management, which insists that please publish every week and so on. You can't publish every week. You can publish newspapers every day and every week, not research articles, all right? So this is something that each one of you should understand. a good journal will typically take 1 to 1.5 years, all right? Of course, I know people would challenge me saying, look, my teacher has published an article within 2 weeks. I doubt such kinds of publication. Good journals would take time and it would demand emotional labor and definitely patience from you. It's a test of your character. That's the best way to put your publication, okay? So please understand, whether you're discussing Scopus or Web of Science, the minimum required period for publication is 1 year to 1.6 years, right? These days, because I have been publishing prolifically, one thing that I have realized is when I started my publication journey at a very young age, like 25, 26, it was like 2-3 months you get the decision. But these days what I figure out is it is taking more time than what is expected for various reasons, which I'm not going to discuss and waste my time. So any publication journey would begin with a journal selection. You will proceed with the submission, editorial review, peer reviewer selection, peer review, editorial decision. You have to respond to the decision by the author, editorial and peer review second round, and finally you have copy editing, proofreading, and publication. So from the start to the end, it takes 1 year and 1.5 years. And please also note, I haven't factored in one very important thing, the writing part of it, or what I call the manuscript preparation part of it. This is about, you have the publication, you have your article ready, and you're doing the selection and you're proceeding with it. But there is another 6 or 8 months where you would be wasting or whatever preparing for that particular manuscript. So totally, I am thinking of 2 to 2.5 years for one publication. Is that clear? All right. So in case you are planning for a publication, I would prefer that you start planning right now after the conversation over, so that you can think of your publication in 2028, maybe January or February, right? If you rush through it, as I said, those may not be the good publication that you are looking for. So that's the first thing that you have to keep in mind. If you have questions, you can make note. I'll come to that. Oh, sorry. The next one that most of you might want to know is how to choose the right journal. Because this is a very important question. I'll tell you why that question matters. Simply because numerically speaking, statistically speaking, there are roughly 30,000 plus Scopus and Web of Science journals. So it's like a huge list. And I'm sure you'll be really confused as in which journal should I submit. And as a writer, you're allowed to submit to just one journal. And there are 30,000 plus journals, and you have to figure out. So I'm going to give you some criteria or tips as in how to select a journal, right? Yeah, so 2 tips, please make note. First, choosing the wrong journal will only prolong the process. So because you are submitting your article to one journal, you choose the wrong journal, which means the process would take time. For example, the editor might come back and say to you that, look, your article doesn't fit into the scope of our journal, which means you have waited for 6 to 8 months, and that's the decision that you're getting from the editor. You're already lost 8 months. So instead of 2 years, I'm talking of 3 years now. So every time you make a mistake, you are prolonging the process. It's like finding a bride or a bridegroom, as simple as that. You find the right person, you live happily, rest is a tragedy. So you already know that. So the next one is important because recently I have been observing research scholars and faculty members submitting the same article to multiple presses. This is an unethical practice. Okay? For example, because it's a time-consuming process, and some of the faculty members and research scholars, instead of waiting for the decision, they submit the same article to multiple journals. It is an unethical practice. In fact, some of the publishing databases have, blacklisting the names. So I would advise never follow this route of submitting the same article to multiple journals. Remember the second one, submit to one journal at a time. Is that clear? Both the instructions. So first one, choose the right journal. If you choose the wrong journal, it will just prolong your process. And the second one is submit your article to one journal and not to multiple journals. And as I've been telling you that recently your name would be blacklisted. If you do this, because especially Indians and Chinese are doing these malpractices. So they are going to, blacklist your name, which means you can't submit your article to the same journal anymore. So be very careful with these instructions. So I'm going to give you some tips as in how to, select the journal. There are so many there, so I'll just show you all of them. Yes. I know you don't have time because we have roughly another 20 minutes, so you can take the photograph if you're interested, okay? Because I'm just allowing it because you don't have time. I mean, I can't explain each of them. So please make note, these are some of the ways how you can identify it. One thing that I want to tell you, can you remove this chair, gentlemen, here? Because there is a website that is out there. I recommend a website. So all of you please make note of the website. It's called thinkchecksubmit.org. I repeat, thinkchecksubmit.org. It's an excellent website which will give you various tips on how to choose an article. Of course, I have given you multiple ways of evaluating it. I'm just going to read it. In case you have any questions, we will come to that much later. The first one is what I call the desk research, where you will by yourself prepare a list of candidate journals by your own research. That's called as desk research. The second one is speak to knowledgeable librarians, mentors, advisors, and colleagues. That's also important. If you have no clarity as in how to choose a journal, all that you have to do is talk to or have a discussion with a knowledgeable, that's very important, okay? Don't think that because he's your guide, he's knowledgeable. And some of your guides might even misguide you, as in they might misdirect you. So you should be very careful with whom you are establishing a conversation. Not every guide has that sense of, journal writing and so on. So I'm not saying that everyone, but then many of them have no idea about publication. So you would go with a suggestion and your guide might say, okay, look, this is not a great journal, so I'm going to give you so that may not be a great effective list of journals. So I would suggest that, you can talk to your colleagues or mentors or advisors and librarians, knowledgeable librarians. For example, in West, they have what is called a research librarian. Suppose, you go to that library. For example, I studied in Cornell, which is in US, that was on a fellowship. So what happens is, you have a resource problem. Let's say you are interested in an author called William Shakespeare. All that you have to do is meet the research librarian. He will prepare you the bibliography. He will tell you where you will find the research resources. All that you have to do, take a printout and start walking in the library and gather all the books and start your research. In India, librarians don't play a very important role. In fact, many of you might not even know where the library is. You have to ask your supervisor or maybe the institution head to see where is the library. Because we don't use the librarian also may not know where the library is. So we have come to that kind of a level, a pathetic level, where libraries don't play a vital role in your cultural formation or in the literary understanding. So, but then there are librarians outside the country, especially West, which is research intensive. All that you have to do is just meet a librarian, he will prepare the bibliography, just walk around. It's such a pleasure to be in many of these places. It's based on my experience. So you have to see if there are knowledgeable librarians and then you can talk to them. They might also help you to suggest some journals. I just want to quickly go through this part. All that you have to remember is acceptance versus rejection rate. Please make note of that criteria, which I will explain as we go along. But acceptance versus rejection rate is one criteria that you can use to identify a journal. For example, some journals might receive, say, 100 articles. They might accept, let's say, 10 or 12. If you know the acceptance is to rejection rate, and if you see that the rejection rates are high, you better stay away from journals. That's one criteria. I'll give you two simple tips that helps you to identify the right journal. The first one obviously is acceptance and rejection rate. I'll tell you where to find it. But then the second tip is frequency of the journal. If the journal frequency is more, I'll give you a good example. Economic and Political Weekly. Economic and Political Weekly is a Scopus Index journal, right? I think it's Q3 or Q2, you can check it. But then, it's a weekly journal. If it is a weekly journal, your chances of acceptance is more. So if the frequency is more, your chances are more. That's the first thing. Because no one observes the frequency of the journal, but that's one of the good indicators as to see whether your article gets accepted or not. The second one is acceptance versus rejection rate. So if the rejection rate is more, stay away from it. For example, I'll give you one example to make you understand. PMLA. I don't know how many of you are from literature background, and this is one of the best journals in literature, Publications of Modern Language Association of America. I repeat, PMLA, all right? And you know what is the rejection rate? They typically in a year receive 300 essays, and they accept only 16 essays. So lesson, stay away from the journal. You're not going to get it anywhere. Maybe you take the whole lifetime to get the article published there. So if you have that kind of luxury of indulgence, then you can do it. Otherwise, if you're in a hurry for promotion or for your cash, whatever, then you should stay away from journals. So some intelligent research is useful. So this is one way of doing it. So I spoke about the frequency, so keep in mind. Okay. Now, journals are broadly divided into three types, especially if you're coming from language and literature background. I believe most of you are from language and literature background, are of three types. The first one is called broad journals. The second one is called narrow, and the third one is called society journals. For example, I think most of you might know that I concentrate on health, humanities, visual studies, American literature, that is my focus area, and comic studies, all right? So suppose I write a paper, there are two ways that I can choose a journal. One is a broad set of journals. These journals publish all kinds of material, right? They are not just focused on a particular field. For example, look at modern fiction studies. Anything related to novel, because it's a fiction studies, MFS, it's one of the excellent journals. Please make note of all these journals. MFS, these are all Scopus Index literature journals and linguistics journal. So MFS will accept anything related to fiction. Look at contemporary literature. Anything after 1900, this journal would welcome you. So these are journals which are slightly general and have a broad scope. So in case your article, you don't see a particular journal where your article would fit in, I would recommend you should go for broad-based journals. And I was talking to you, Sangeet, and you said you were working on graphic medicine, comics, and ADHD, because you are looking for a specific kind of narrow journals. You should also try the broad set of journals. So that's another way of looking at it. The narrow set of journals are focused journals. For example, the Wordsworth Circle is all about Wordsworth. So if you're specifically working on a particular author or a period, this set of writers, for example, Shakespeare Quarterly. So Shakespeare Quarterly would publish only articles related to Shakespeare. You look at Journal of Neuroscience Research. Anything related to neuroscience and language learning would come under Journal of Neuroscience. Asian Englishes. It's not Englishes in general, but this is about English as spoken in Asia, South Asian context, Asian context. Journal of Medical Humanities. If you're working on health-related material. So these are journals with a narrow focus. And then you have society journals. For every author, or most of the authors, do have what is called a society. For example, there is something called Toni Morrison Society. Right? So where all the scholars specializing in Toni Morrison would come together. They have an annual conference, they also have a journal and so on. So you have to figure out Virginia Woolf. Look at Virginia Woolf. So they have a journal called Virginia Woolf Miscellany. Dickens, Charles Dickens, they all, readers of Charles Dickens come together. It's called Dickens Quarterly and so on. So please make note there are three types of journals. One is broad, narrow, and society journals. So in case you don't find a very particular, for example, you're working on opera, all right, and you don't see there is any journal, you can apply or submit your article to any of those broad journals. So keep this in mind, and this is one way to distinguish it. All right, so I'll quickly go to the other aspects of it, and then we'll come to this. Okay, before you do any publication or research, this is what you should be looking at. I'm just taking one particular example from Taylor and Francis, and the name of the journal is, a journal of graphic novels and comics. The title itself would make it very clear what is the focus of the journal. You know it, right? Graphic novels and comics. The first thing that you have to do is read the aims and the scope of the journal. That's step number one before you submit your article. All right? There is another one which I want you to make note. That's called journal metrics. So the first thing that you have to figure out is the journal scope about the journal, and the second one is what is called the journal metrics. So I'm going to show you an example and make you understand what is the journal metric. Here, look, this is a journal metric. So everything that you wanted to know about the journal is available in the journal metric. For example, look at the citation metric. See, it says, I'm talking about a journal called Asian Englishes. Just for an example. So if you want to know whether it's a Q1, Q2, Q3 or Q4, you have the list here. So it says Q1, right? Now look at the other speed and acceptance. This is a very important part. See, it says 96 days average from submission to the first decision. So it says you have to wait for 96 days to get your first decision. 151 days average from submission to first post review, 21 days, and look at this, 23% is the acceptance rate for Asian Englishes. So always remember a couple of things. One is the journal metrics, and the second one is do a research about the scope of the journal. So these are two important things. Don't submit your article before doing the research on these two parameters. They should be really helpful. Let me also give you an example for another journal that I was discussing here. This Journal of Graphic Novels and Comics. Look at it. It says it is Q1 journal. This is the journal metrics of graphic novels and comics. It says it takes 70 days from submission, 78, 80, and the acceptance rate is 42%. So in case you're working on, say, graphic novels and comics, maybe you should be thinking here, because you see that acceptance rate is slightly more generous compared to the earlier one. So always remember to make note of the journal metrics. Okay, I'm going to give you some tools which might help you to, they are called journal suggester tools. Okay. So the first suggestion, all these tools are free of cost, but then it would make your process easy. So I'm going to give you some suggestions here. My first one is called journalguide.com. It's a free tool that helps researchers evaluate, compare scholarly journals. The tool allows you to search by journal name, category, or publisher. Now, I'll tell you why these journal suggesters are useful. Suppose you are not very sure of which journal would work. Okay? Your abstract is ready, your paper is ready, you have all the keywords set in the page one, but you are not very sure where to find what to do. So what you have right now, this is an example from Taylor and Francis, Routledge, and they have something called author services. So how does this page or this particular website works? It's very simple. All that you have to do is paste your abstract here. So if your abstract is ready and you're not very sure of the journal, all that you have to do is paste your abstract here and click reveal suggested journals. So only two things, all right? You need not waste your time figuring out or identifying the journals. This website would help you. And do remember, Taylor and Francis has more than 2,500 journals. It's one of the best for humanities, arts, and literature. That's why I took the journal suggester as this as an example so that you would understand it. So it's Taylor and Francis, author services, journal suggester. All that you have to do is paste your abstract here and click reveal suggested journal. Based on your abstract, it will recommend the journals for you. So this is a reversal where you need not work. The AI-driven web pages would help you to identify the right journals. I got 14 more minutes. I'll teach you one more here. Please make note. This is what I call journalguide.com. These are all free tools. So they have given you two options. Option one, you can paste the abstract here. And if you don't have an abstract, you have just the title, you paste it. So it makes your process very easy. Title or abstract. And all that you have to do is search. Based on your abstract and title, it would recommend a list of journals. So it makes the whole process very efficient. Otherwise, searching the journal would take, a lot of your time, but this would make things easier. The next one, please make note, it's called cofactorscience.com. Here, you can customize the process. You will decide what is the speed, whether you want an open access, how long do you wait for the peer review, subject, other. So you would make a list of it, and based on your thing, the particular website would give you a customized list of journals. So this is another very useful website because you can decide the speed, and based on the speed, it would list you some of the journals. So this is an amazing thing. The second one that I want you to note is Springer Journal Suggester, and there is also Elsevier Journal Suggester. Always remember, the 4 best publishers in humanities and social sciences are, please make note, Routledge is number 1, that's called Taylor and Francis. It's a UK-based publishing company. The second one is Sage, S-A-G-E. The third one is Springer. Palgrave also comes under Springer, and the fourth one is Elsevier. These are some of the best publishing houses as far as humanities and social sciences are concerned. Statistics says that 35% of content related to humanities and social sciences come from these publishing houses. But then these are not my personal favorite. The one that comes now is my personal favorite. This is what is called JANE, J-A-N-E, or Journal Author Name Estimator. This is an amazing website. You know why? In one page, you can find the journals, you can find the authors, you can also find the articles. Let's do an example here. I'll give you an example. Suppose you are interested in, say, environmental humanities. All that you have to do is just insert environmental humanities and click authors. It will give you the list of authors who are working on environmental humanities. So otherwise, you will be spending, it's a time-consuming process to know who are the authors working in your field. Suppose you're working on AI and creativity. All that you have to do is type AI and creativity and click find author. So people across the globe who are working on AI will be listed here. So this is a brilliant site which I personally like. It's called JANE, or Journal Author Name Estimator. All the three, you can find the journals, you can have the authors listed, and you also have the articles listed. So use it. Okay? Now, we'll go to the AI because I received so many questions that you have filled in Google form. So I will teach you how to use AI and because this is a very confusing space and all of us are suffering from it. Some invite it, some find it problematic, especially English teachers find it very tricky space. So I'm going to explain how you can use AI for your research. What are the ethical modes? That is the key word, ethical modes of doing it. So I have some suggestions for you, you can make note of them. The first one is this. These are general AI assistants. I think most of you might be using it, or you may be familiar with these names. You have ChatGPT, you have Google's Gemini, you have Microsoft Copilot, there are so many now, so you can. So I'm not bothered about the general and popular AI, but then I have a list which might be useful for researchers. This is important. So if you can break your whole process into multiple steps for generating, this is the first step in your research. So the first step in any research is generating good set of research questions. So for that, you can use what is called research kit AI. The second step in your research is literature review. That's figuring out or identifying books or articles written on that particular thing. So I'm suggesting 1, 2, 3, 4, any of them. And Perplexity, I think most of you might know, is actually developed by an Indian, So Perplexity is another thing that's very nice. In fact, much better than ChatGPT. It gives you a lot of information about the findings. For visual research, for visual search, you can use Research Rabbit, Insightful. For reading papers and summary making, you have Scholarassi and Lateral. For editing your papers, you can use PaperPal, and for reviewing papers, this is a very interesting website. So your article is ready, and you want to get a feedback, there is a AI for it. So upload your article, and the AI will give you the feedback. So even before you submit your article for publication, maybe you should be using this particular AI, which gives you feedback of your article. And based on I'm not saying that it's 100% excellent feedback, but then someone is giving you a feedback. For example, it might spot errors in your language, It might tell you that the paragraph is not properly developed. It's a very useful website, and most of them, almost all of them are free. So I would recommend that even before you submit the article, I encourage you to review your article with paperreview.com, upload your article, and the AI would give you a feedback, and based on the feedback, improve it, and then submit to the journal. So that's one way of doing it. I have 8 more minutes, so next. Always remember this simple formula, what is called as assisted versus generative. Assisted versus generative. For instance, I was going through Sangeet's article, and interestingly, he has used exactly the way I want. He says he used, this is Sangeet's article, this is Sangeet, and he's working on graphic medicine, which is my field of expertise. So he wanted to get his article reviewed by me, so I accepted it. So one of the things that I figured out is the declaration part. Brilliant actually, Sangeet, and being so honest with the work. He says the authors used generative AI for various reasons. So what is allowed and what is not allowed, let's have a discussion. So please make note that if you're using AI for improving the quality of language, okay, that is fully accepted. We have reached that point where it is accepted. Number 2, you cannot make your AI as a second author. So you can't say, okay, this is an article written by Satyaraj Venkateshan and ChatGPT. So you can't list AI as an author. That's not accepted, because if there is a problem, who will take the ownership? The question of ownership, which is an ethical question, right? If there is a problem with the article, you can always catch hold of an individual who wrote it. But then you can't take a machine, you can't talk about the ownership in terms of a machine. So you can never list an AI as a second author. So keep that in mind. So what is allowed thus far is you can use AI for improving the quality of language. And I think you say that exactly here. He says he has used AI for language editing, improving clarity, and refining all academic expressions and of the manuscript. So that makes sense for me. What is not allowed is the generative part. A generative part is where you ask the question, it will generate a content and you use the same content in your paper. That is a big no as of now, right? AI is also allowed for brainstorming. Okay, that is perfectly fine. So you have a particular issue and you want to see how the machine reacts to your question. That is perfectly all right. So 2 things that you have to keep in mind for functional uses like clarity, summarizing, formality, changing the tone. AI is fully accepted, but then you can never list it. I'll give you an example of how to quote an AI in case you are. This is how you would do it. So this is a problem that most of my students face. Suppose you are using AI. How do you cite the AI in your article? So this is a format recommended by MLA. I think most of you know that MLA is a very important guidebook for language and literature people. So MLA has given us set guidelines. So in case you are using the AI, this is the way how you would do it. So I've taken an example here, but then generally it's about the prompt. You have the prompt as in what did you type, followed by the name of the company and the version. For example, you have OpenAI, ChatGPT, and so on, and the date of the content and the general URL. So this is the way how you would cite an MLA. And always remember, AI is an evolving technology, so the citation and whatever is being discussed now might also evolve. So we may have a different set of guidelines if we have a different kind of a century or a year from now. So this is the core position. I don't want to take too much time here just for this. See, they have made it very clear. AI tools cannot be listed as an author of a paper. So that's what I have been telling you. This is the core position, and almost all journals do accept that you cannot have it. Now, I want to stop my presentation by giving you some secrets of writing, which is what is called as the prompt engineering. How do you write a good prompt? So this is a formula that you have to make note. It's called RTCROS. So whenever you think of writing a prompt, there is a particular structure that AI would understand. And I put it like RTC, ROS. I'll explain each of them and give you one example and stop my presentation. Yes, this is how you would do it. So you would, R stands for role, T stands for task, C stands for context, R stands for reasoning, O stands for output, and S stands for stopping. So whenever you are thinking of a prompt, follow this particular one. I've given you an example here. Role is tutor, the task is explain a term, context is student is preparing for an examination, reasoning it, keep it simple and clear, output is a short definition, picture, PDF, word, and stopping is end after one line or 200 words. So typically, this is where all of us miss. We don't give a context for an AI. So context, as long as you don't give the context, AI prepares all kinds of nonsense for you. So if you can specify the context, you would get bit more precise, expected or desirable result. So always keep this is the secret of AI prompt. So whenever you prepare an AI prompt, keep all these parameters in mind. All right? I have 3 more minutes, so I'm going to give you talk a bit about Web of Science and Scopus. Yeah, can I complete and get back to you? Because I have 10 more minutes for the discussion, so I'll come there. Okay, so there are 2, indexes. One is Web of Science, and the second one is Scopus. Now, if you ask me personally, I have 73 Web of Science articles and 158 articles in total, 120 Scopus journals. So based on my experience, it's always very difficult to publish an article in Web of Science. For a couple of reasons. One, it takes a long period of time. And 2, there are limited journals. So if you're starting your career as a researcher or you're just starting your career as a writer, I would never advise you to jump to Web of Science. Let it wait. Start with a Scopus journal. Practice maybe publish 1 or 2 journals and then articles and then go Web of Science. Now, what is Web of Science and how many journals do we have it? Yes. So this is it. Look at the numbers. You see? Which particular field has more journals? Now you understand why your scientist and your fellow chemist has more publication than you, because they have so many journals listed. And what about the arts? Yeah, that's it. So whenever you as a HOD or representative, you go there, your management would say, look at the chemist, he has published 250 papers, right? Yeah. The whole department won't publish 10 in a year. So what is the reason? Because there are so many journals listed here. It's like 6,500 and arts and humanities have roughly. So this is the difference that partly explains why a scientist is more productive. They are not really productive. That's a fact, right? Because they have so many publications. Whatever they write, they see a venue for publication compared to ours, where you don't have many journals. So that is why they appear to be productive, and we are the losers, all right? So this is the example. Okay, I'll stop with this 1 more minute. So please make note, this is a way, how do you get the list of journals? There are 2 options. Option 1, go to Google and type SCI master list. So you will get the entire journal list. This is not Scopus, this is Web of Science, right? So all that you have to do is Google and go to SCI Master Journal List. This is what you would key in. You will get the entire journal list of Web of Science. Or you can visit the Web of Science, journal homepage, which is mjlclarivate.com. So there are 2 options to get the entire list. So either option 1, Google it, or visit the Web of Science page, and this is how the journal web page would look like. I think I have to stop here. I'll show one example here. See, this is how the page would look like. So you have all the details here. You can open access category. You can also choose, in terms of country. Suppose you are interested in India, publishing Indian journal. I don't see there are many good Web of Science Indian journals. So language, frequency, and you can set all the parameters, and based on the parameters, you would get it. Also remember, these are subscription-based databases, so you don't have a free access to many of the features. Some features are free, most of the features you have to pay. Maybe you should talk to your institution and see whether your institution subscribes to these journal databases, all right? And the last slide for the day, Scopus. Yeah. Now, please understand, look, how many How many? That's what I said. So Web of Science has less number of journals, Scopus has more set of. So your chances of getting published in Scopus is more compared to Web of Science. And if you want the complete list, you can get the complete list as an Excel file. So this is where you have to go. So please make note, elsevier.com solution Scopus. It's difficult, just take a photograph. You can download the complete list of Scopus journal in Excel format. Or in case you want it, I have it, I can send it to Krishna, and I'm sure she's in touch with most of you, so she can send it across. So this is one of the easiest way to download the entire list of journals. So I'll stop here. I'll take questions if you have any. As I said, this would go on, this won't stop. This is 107 slides, so I need a complete, 3 hours block to complete my presentation. So I'll stop here. So 8 more minutes. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to accept it.
Hello, sir. Again, it was a brilliant presentation. Thank you for that. My question is, when a young faculty goes for an interview, they ask, like, how many papers you have published. That is a normal, fair question they are asking, but they don't much care about the quality. Here, quality versus quantitative publishing is there. Can you explain on this?
Brilliant question, because that question strikes a lot. It resonates to me as well, because I sit in several interview panels, right? Because I work for NIT, so obviously I get more invitation to sit in several such panels. So one of the questions that the management would require us to look in your CV is absolutely this, the number of publications. So ideally, I would say if you're just starting your career, I think you're just starting your career, or you're a PhD scholar, or you're a teacher?
I'm a scholar as well as
A teacher, yeah. So you should be, really worried about these kinds of concerns. Okay, the fact is, if you're starting your career, the answer is very simple. It should be a good mix of quality and quantity. Is that clear? So if you have 5 papers, I'll tell you why that matters in a minute. I would suggest that if you're just starting the career, you should have at least 4 to 5 articles. 2 or 3 maybe in Q3 and Q4, at least 1 or 2 in a quality journal. If you can have that kind of a mix, you stand for a chance. If you're just looking for the quality, you may have just 1 or 2 articles. Unfortunately, universities, including NIT, won't look at the quality of the paper. You may have a publication in PMLA. For NIT or IIT or any institution in India, we are just converting that paper into a number. For example, you have 5 papers is equal to 10 marks. This lady has 10 papers is equal to 20 marks. So between you and her, she stands for a chance and you lose the chance. You may talk about, oh look, my CV is better. I have publication in PMLA, I have publication in MFS. Only knowledgeable professors would know what it means to publish in PMLA. Rest of a clerk who will be looking at your file would just convert it into numbers. So the answer is, it's a mix of quality and quantity. Now, once you become an associate professor, unfortunately, in India, most of them, once they become associate professor, they stop researching. But then, generally, if you become a professor, an associate professor, you have the luxury of time. Maybe your workload is down compared to so you can think of quality as you grow the progress. As I said, in India, that doesn't work. Most of us retire pretty early. Once they reach professorship, they stop publishing, they stop reading and so on. But generally, this is the way how you should be looking at. So if you're a starter, have a good mix of quality and quantity, because when you appear for an interview, all that matters, it's all converted to numbers. Make sense? Logical? Yeah. Any other questions? Please raise your hand. Yes, please, ma'am.
Climb of human is written by AI.
Yeah,
the plagiarism
that's
thing
a
will
very
come.
difficult question. I mean, we don't have a definitive answer. When someone says you can use AI to improve language, you're already bringing AI into it, and it changes the human language. So we don't have a definitive answer.
Because certain period of time there is a correction with AI.
That's what I'm telling you. So it just changes it. So you don't have it. You don't have any answers. I mean, the whole community is trying to figure out how to do it. Maybe, as I said, you should restrict your corrections to using AI for improving language and not for generating ideas.
As we have cited as ChatGPT, then there will be a problem.
So we have no idea doing this. this. I mean, everyone is in the same ship, and I'm afraid the ship is sinking.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't, I mean, whatever I have, I just spoke out, but we don't have a definitive ways of saying, oh, maybe, I will tell you one way of doing it. Maybe you completely avoid AI. Will that work?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, in that way you are very authentic. That's a simple solution, right? Yeah.
Thank you,
Before I
sir.
close, there was one very interesting question which hit me hard. The question was this, tell me a list of journals where I have to pay less than 60,000. I don't know who wrote that question. That just hit me so hard. Someone is asking me to give me a list of journals where I can pay less than 60,000. So look at the way how people are interpreting Scopus. I'm not saying, please make note, that Scopus is a sacred space. I know journals, please, Professor, please wait, let me complete. I know journals which are part of Scopus where you can pay and get it published. So I'm not talking about the sacredity of the indexing. All right? I'm not saying every journal that you see in Scopus is a fine journal where it's an unpaid and things like that. But then, my answer to this is avoid that journals. You see that? It's as simple as that. If someone is asking you to pay and publish, the first thing that you should do, if you're a real scholar, is to avoid those journals. If you're unethical, obviously you would want to pay and get it done. As someone who has written 156 and 120 articles, I have never paid even a single paise for 120 articles that I have published. As simple as that. And I know the Scopus has 24,000 journals. Maybe 100 journals in the list might ask you money. Skip that journal. I mean, it's as simple as that. The second tendency that I see among faculty and research scholars is publishing and choosing in wrong non-field journals. This is also picking up especially among mediocre people. You are from language and literature, but when I see your CV, you have publication in engineering, Journal of Engineering, Journal of Fisheries. My question is, what is an English professor anything to do with these kinds of journals? I was sitting in a panel and here is an English professor who says, oh, look, my CV is impressive. I said, okay, show me your CV. And 4 out of 5 articles that she is boasting of, all the 4 journals are published in an engineering one and she is placed as 6th or 7th author. I said, I'm not going to promote this person. Full stop. The conversation ends there. Because I'm doing injustice to people who do work. I don't want people like this in the profession. How do they serve?
All that is taken into account is all these Scopus.
I'm telling you, these are all unethical practices. People tell me this is my 175th event. I meet so many people. People go on asking me, look, give me the list of journals. I have to pay. I'm telling you, there are 25,000 Scopus journals. 100 journals might ask or demand money. Skip the list. Appear, work hard. I can give you a list of journals where they don't get any money. Look at my own Scopus list, download it and publish it there. So these are all lame excuses that we come with for securing our ego. You see that? The second one, as I said, is a lot of English teachers are moving outside their field and publishing in some stupid journals like engineering. Engineers will take care of engineering. I don't think you should go there and contribute anything. And where you are placed as 6th or 7th author, and I asked explanation, how do you explain your location in the list? You know what she said? She said, I did a language correction for them and they have been so generous to put it. Anyway, she's not getting promotion, thanks to me. But then, this is how things are. So I just want you to be very careful, especially young people. If someone is asking money, withdraw your manuscript. Do some research. Again, I'm telling you, there are so many journals which won't ask money. You should identify them and it's your moral responsibility to do that. Rather than saying, oh, look, there are 5 journals which is demanding money, what should I do? Skip those journals, that's it. Similar answer. How should I use AI? Don't use AI. You're not getting into the ethical conundrum. It's as simple as that. If you're so honest and genuine and you want to do a good research, stay from AI and write a paper and publish. So if you're ethically deficient, you would do these kinds of practices. So that's my answer. Because you're ethically weak, you are not very sure about your research practices and methodologies, you would pursue and chase these false, mirages. It's better not to get published at all rather than indulging in such unethical practices. So this is the final word, and I want all of you to reform yourself and think about the kind of practices that you are doing both as a scholar as well as a teacher. I rest my case here. Thank you, Krishna.
Some agencies, some XY agencies asking for the scholars, Apart from that, there is a pressure from the institution for the promotions, where the guide, they just put pressure over the scholar. This is happening. But sir, I accept that. I accept that ethical practices should be there in the academic affairs. But at the same time, it's because of this pressure, scholars are made the victims. That comes from the hierarchy. So just to safeguard the position, the professors are under pressure. Again, just to finish their thesis work, the scholars are under pressure. So this is the current scenario going on there. So what you're saying is right. Yes, I can say that it took almost 5-6 years for me to submit my thesis.
I'll tell you something here.
6 years, you won't believe, because my guide was like, sir, right? My guide is like, if you are just taking, from any source, he can clearly say that this AI generated. Yeah, he's from IIT Madras, sir. So he just clearly points out that, Professor, this is not the right thing. You have taken, and this is a plagiarism. No, just go and redo that. So this is the scenario, and it took almost 6 years for me to, I'm in the final phase, thank God. So finally I have made my guide to to accept all my drafts. No, not convinced, but finally he has accepted that I am on the right track. So likewise, now we always make sure to go, you people have to go on the right track, not just keep putting all your trust over the AI stuff. Again, what the sister has said, like the human eyes. Again, human eyes is also a plagiarism. You will get caught in that one. So it means that cognizance offloading. Can I say? Cognizance offloading. So that is the scenario currently we are experiencing. So thank you, sir. Thanks for your eye-opener.
I know it might hurt some people, but then I thought it's more important that you know how to post these matters, especially for young scholars who just
So just following up on sir, like sir said, this is AI generator, all of this, but this, for us, the wait period and the process of rejection, how do you think we can tackle it as young researchers?
It's an interesting space for rejection. I have explained how you deal with it. So, for example, when I started my career, I don't think we have time for that kind of a conversation, but then I have to make it very simple and clear. So when I started my career, I was a young scholar in IIT Kanpur, where I studied. The first 1 year, I even went to the state of depression, because every time I submit an article, I'm too young, right, to accept these kinds of rejection. So it's like the experience is something like you have a love affair and then there is a breakdown and the kind of feelings that you would have, the puppy loves that you would have and crushes and so on. So I had a very tough time for the first year where they go on rejecting it and so on. So how do you handle rejection is a very, every rejection, please understand, is a feedback. So failure is not actually a failure. Failure is actually somebody is giving you a feedback. You call it as a failure, and you live in a society where failures are not tolerated.
Yeah.
We call this culture of disrespect, the culture of intolerance, and so on. So if you can just sidestep it and see the genuineness in the process and trust the process, I'm sure it would be very learning and enriching kind of a journey. So that's one way of doing it. This is slightly philosophical, you see that? But then there are practical ways of doing it. I'll give you one tip and close the session. Suppose you have submitted an article to a Q1 journal. Okay, let's imagine that. And the journal rejected your article and they gave you a feedback. Unlike most of the Indian publishers, the foreign publishers go through your article and give you the ways to improve it. Of course, they reject, but then they also give you excellent suggestions. So my humble submission here is based on what you receive as a feedback, improve your article and redirect that article to a different journal. In that way, this is a practical way of looking at it. It's one thing to talk about the philosophy of, accept the failure and so on. But then what is the practical way of doing it? Accept the feedback, rewrite your work and send it to, say, a similar Q1 journal or to a Q2 journal. I'm sure the chances are more and bright compared to the first attempt. So always read, it's not a failure, it's just a feedback to your work. Thank you. Are we ready to go or do we have? Yes, gentlemen here. Yeah, what's your question? Please, please.
So as researchers and scholars, we spend months and years nearly to submit, to write an article. Okay. Yeah, most of us spend months and years to even to manuscript an article. So in a reviewer's point of view, what do you think if an article receives to them, which part do they give importance and which one should be more stronger? Because we are using AI and the language is more efficient. Everyone uses the good language.
Actually teach a course, a module. It's a very interesting module. You know why? I show students passages and the question is, tell me whether this is an AI, what I call synthetic language, or whether it is actually written by humans. At the end of the class, we would discuss 10 such passages and students can easily identify which are the passages or paragraph written by AI and which are written by humans. So we do those kind of exercises which would help you to figure out the language of AI. Yes? I got the answer. I got the question. Thank you. So her question is, tell me what is the reviewer looking in your article, or why is that the article? Yeah, very simple point. Yeah, I'll tell you one, which is again a very tricky word to use. It's about the originality. It's a very tricky word, You can always ask me, what do you mean by originality in literary context or in cultural studies context? I'll give you a simple example for that. So that you understand what is the idea of originality in practical terms. I can always give you a philosophy explanation saying, okay, creative means you should be blessed. The project muse should bless you. All this nonsense, let's pack it up. Now, originality in literary studies is thinking of a perspective which is not addressed by the previous scholars. As simple as that. Is that clear? You have William Shakespeare. So, how do I figure out this? I'll tell you. There is a book which I do. Let's say William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. So the first thing that I do, because I'm more interested to see the originality perspective of Romeo and Juliet. So what I do is I do a lot of literature review and I list what are the perspectives which are already covered. It's very clinical approach to originality. And then figure out or try to read the text which doesn't fall into any of the categories. In that way, you're pressurizing your mind to find a new perspective in the same book. If that is not available in your article, I'm afraid most of them would reject because they see this is a repetition of already existing scholarship in some kind of a language. So the first thing that an editor wants to know is what is this article doing differently from the rest of the articles. If you can answer that along with the relevance of your problem, you're done. I'm happy to review it. Otherwise, it directly goes to the dustbin. Because I say this because I'm a reviewer for 38 journals. So obviously, the first thing that I do is read the abstract. I want to figure out where is that originality. If I see you're repetitive, it's a cliched argument. I'm looking at feminism in Arundhati Roy's God of Small Things. Come on. Even Arundhati Roy would be tired. Makes sense, right? Yeah. And then you write thesis, and then you have a PhD viva. What, on feminism? How many times you want to do it? Lady here. I think we have to close.
Sir, actually,
I know this is becoming interesting. But then
when you said the originality, the different from others,
exactly.
what I did in my UG, I did a research on Good Days, Marxist theory, but the organization said we are not accepting your research. It's because it is controversial at that period. The movie was got
Story.
banned.
Yeah, that is a different story of censorship.
Actually, everybody asked why not in subaltern. Why did you go for Marxism? I said nobody has thought.
I would also want to tell you something. I know these are interesting conversations can go on, but because you said this, see, I will tell you something. This might be useful. The 20th century approach to literature is dead. What is 20th century literature? Just go to a library and check the thesis section. You would have Marxist reading of this, feminist reading of this. I mean, all that you have is the same book, but then isms change. Postmodern reading, postmodernism reading, modernism reading, feminist reading, post-structuralism. This approach is dead. Now we are going to interdisciplinary fields. For example, health humanities, digital humanities. Do you understand that? Blue humanities. It has become very flattened and interdisciplinary. If you're still stuck with the old way of doing scholarship, I'm afraid you are never going to get published because people are sick and tired of using one theory and setting a book. It's like saying magic realism in Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children. How many times you want to repeat the same thing? I don't have any problem with the book, but then with the author, I mean, as in the research scholar. So please come out of that thinking itself. 21st century humanities is a radical interdisciplinarity, where humanities, shakes hand with medicine. There is a new field called plant humanities, where people are working on plants. English professor is visiting a plant lab or maybe a herbarium and trying to figure out the history of plants. We have come to that level. Every discipline is what we call post-disciplinary is the word of the 21st century. So one has to distinguish between the 20th century approach and the 21st century, which is very, very interdisciplinary. If you are unfortunately stuck with the 20th century, your chances of rejection is more because everywhere globally there is a sense that such approaches are redundant now. So you should rethink the kind of approaches. And unfortunately, our curriculum doesn't teach new fields. No one teaches health humanities. I get so many invitations because I work on health humanities. Most of them would ask, how do you introduce health humanities into the curriculum? A lot of digital stuff is coming in. So you have to also, innovate, think of your curriculum, rethink, add new fields, critical lenses, so that it becomes more.
I feel state board does not have a hands on humanities. Only the
Which department? State
like
board? You're in plus two?
no. Like I'm talking about from schooling itself, curriculum period. CBSE has hands on humanities.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I come from Kerala State Board, so I don't know about
Kerala is
the CBSE.
broad
Yeah,
in curriculum.
I know. It's much more innovative. Yes. Anyway,
Thank you,
so
sir.
much for your patient listening. I have a flight to catch, so I have to wrap it up. So you're welcome to write to me. I'll put my cards here, my visiting cards, with the permission of the chair, and we close the session. I hope it was useful, and these are interesting conversation that can continue forever. Thank you, and all the best for your publication. And I should thank Dr. Krishna. She has been in touch with me for a year or so. And if at all you want to applaud, it's not directed to me. You should applaud her for bringing me here and making this possible. Thank you so much for the invitation, and I hope it was.
That was a brilliant session, very informative. I just have a request. Yes, there is one person who has been helping me tirelessly in scheduling the entire papers, right, the set of papers. I would like to acknowledge that work. Please, Gayatri, please come. So sweet of her to work tirelessly on scheduling the papers, both online and
especially with Indians, they go on talking. Yeah. Thank you.
There's also this side, yes.
Can we stand?
Yes.
Congratulations.
This one also. May I now request the participants to kindly join for a group photo with sir? Please. After which we will break for tea and refreshment, and then we can call it a day, right? Please, please come forward. From you. என்ன certificate இது? Present பண்ணது. Participants, please, you can collect your certificates from Ms. Gayatri before you leave. Kindly collect your certificates from Ms. Gayatri before you leave.